In our first episode, we explained why we make this podcast. In this one, we want to explain further what we want to do and, more importantly, what we don't. In part one, we start close to the heart of the public service and sit down one-to-one with the Chief Secretary. We talk about the civil service, how it works, the pressures it faces, and the role it plays in keeping the country running. But we also go beyond the job title and get to know a little about Glendon from Laguna, the person behind the role. In part two, we turn the focus on ourselves and give you a fully transparent breakdown of how this podcast is made. In housekeeping conversation with the rest of the podcast team, we introduce ourselves as hosts and explain what this podcast is, and, most importantly, what it is not. We talk openly about what it costs the taxpayer, editorial guidelines, how guests are chosen, format, frequency, AI policy, and why we think this communications tool is important for the general public. Welcome to episode 2 of Not Another Press Release. Glendon, we normally open with sort of breaking away the barriers. So I'm referring to you as Glendon rather than what we usually use around the office, Chief Secretary. But I want to know, and I want to let the viewers know, what the life of a Chief Secretary of the Government of Gibraltar is like.
Okay, first and foremost, Anton, you always call me Glendon because above all we're friends. The Chief Secretary, very few people understand the role of the Chief Secretary. First and foremost is totally apolitical. Despite the fact that one is working with the Chief Minister on a daily basis, with Cabinet Ministers on a daily basis, they decide on policy and I am there to implement their policy and advise if that policy is possible, suitable, or if we have the resources to actually implement that policy. That's discussion that I have with them, but the role is completely apolitical. Secondly, it's very wide because in the public service there's 54 departments. Then we have to add the agencies, the authorities, the government-owned companies. So no 2 days are the same. And that is an unfortunate reality, which with time I've started to enjoy more because you come to the office and you have a plan and everything happens except your plan. You end up the day thinking, what have I done today? And the reality is when you look back, you've done a lot, but it seems you have done nothing.
None of the things you already set out to do in the morning.
So it's quite a big role. The Chief Secretary is the most senior public servant in the entire public service. In my view, the importance of the role is to make sure that the public service has the resources, the training, the infrastructure, the technology, and that I am able to convey the policies that Cabinet decides needs implemented to the different heads of departments so that the staff can then go ahead and implement the policies as and when necessary.
But while your role isn't political in the sense that you're sort of not partisan to a political party, you have an input in terms of the policy in how it affects your colleagues, no? The people in the civil service. I'm sure that you also sort of fight for the rights of the civil service and for their having the resources to do their job, etc.
Thankfully, Gibraltar is democratic, and we have a democratic government, and we have successive democratic governments. So the cabinet ministers are always keen to discuss their policies, keen to get your advice, keen to get your professional guidance, and not only mine, that of the many heads of departments, because if they're going to implement a new tax policy, they want in the room the Commissioner of Income Tax and myself and other significant heads of departments. If they want to develop and implement digital services policy, they will want in the room our Chief Innovation Officer and our ITLD directors. Then it's their decision. But yes, we have a say in the same way as the electorate has a say, because we vote on manifestos and in my experience so far, there's always been a lot of willingness to consult, despite the fact you may say yes and then they may decide on the no, or the other way around. But that is their prerogative, and that is a decision for the elected members of parliament, the ministers, to proceed on policies.
One of the things that we've worked on together is negotiations with unions.
Correct.
So obviously, from the press office, we take care of the public positions of government. And I found there's a very interesting contradiction there, no, or a bit of a paradox there, where you're there in support of the civil service, and that you're there to try and provide the best possible working conditions for the civil servants. But at the same time, you're sort of looking out for the public purse, and you're navigating
Correct.
that fine line. How does that sort of feel?
I mean, when someone asks me about my role, what I most dislike of the role, I say tongue-in-cheek, union negotiations. It's always very hard, despite the fact that I have an excellent working relationship with Unite, the GGCA, NASUT, the Police Federation, and other bodies, although those are the main unions. It's always difficult because, and I tell them, look, yes, they are your members, but they're also our employees. So I also have an interest in them getting the best terms and conditions, because that will make them more motivated to do a better job. However, we need to be realistic. We need to manage expectations. And I think unions over the years have started to manage expectations more and more with the members, which gives us a better opportunity for us to discuss things openly and hopefully agree on compromises, because there will always be a compromise that comes for a good outcome for our employees that de facto are also the members, but they're also our employees. So I want to take the best possible option for them. At the same time, the public servants, as you know, is funded by the taxpayer. So we need to make sure that what we fund is what we can afford, because the golden rule of this government is that recurrent expenditure cannot exceed the revenue. So as soon as, if everyone wants to provide a 10% increase to the public servants, but that becomes unmanageable and unaffordable, and we have to look, my role is to look at this in the long term. Will we be able to afford this for the next 5 years? Will we be able to afford this for the next 10 years? It's my role, in consultation with the financial secretary, who I work hand in glove with him on a daily basis. We need to look at these things. We need to be serious about this. It's very easy to say yes. Everyone wants to hear a yes. But my role is also to say no, and say it quickly. And that is something that I think that with time I've learned. When I know it's going to be no, I say it very quickly, because you don't create any false expectations. So
this is you say tongue-in-cheek, the thing you least enjoy about your job. What do you most enjoy about your job?
A lot of things. Something which is not publicly known is that we're going through a process of reform. We've done a lot of changes. We've done a lot of changes to the e-gov systems, some of them which people don't realize, but it's much quicker, it's much more efficient. We do a lot of changes in terms of training. We now have a training prospectus, which in my view is the envy of any public service around the world. We had over 7,000 courses in terms of number of courses. I mean, not 7,000 different ones, which were provided last year to 5,000 public servants. And that's a huge number of courses from everything that you can imagine. All of them were fully booked. The Excellence Awards, I've enjoyed it so much because it provides a platform to recognize hard work, to recognize the work of public servants, which normally are just behind the computer screen or behind the counter. But they themselves, some of them in particular, have been excellent in their role. So they've been nominated by their colleagues or by the heads of departments. And that for me has been absolutely fantastic. The mentorship program, I think the mentorship program is great in terms of providing mentorship to younger people. We've just started the public service mentorship program, which goes hand in hand with the women's mentorship program, whereby I've asked personally most of the senior public servants that I work with to please, I know we don't have time, let's find the time to be a mentor to the future leaders in the public service. So these are things that I've particularly enjoyed. However, without a question, what I've most enjoyed is my experience, my limited experience, because I haven't been involved in every single step in connection to the treaty negotiations. I was I'm delighted that I was invited by the Chief Minister, the Deputy Chief Minister, Attorney General, to join them and Daniel D'Amato in the 3 ministerial high-level meetings. I was inside that room where there was the Foreign Secretary, at the time was David Cameron. Then I went to the next meeting with the next Foreign Secretary, David Lammy and Stephen Doughty, Alvarez on the other side, and I saw firsthand how diplomacy in real life works, how the Chief Minister was negotiating on behalf of the Governor of Gibraltar and small Gibraltar in Brussels, opposite ministers of large economic powerhouses that we see on TV every day, and I was in that room. I was contributing in whatever way was requested. I was in part of my role, and I really, really enjoyed it. Ahead of those meetings, other things that I've enjoyed have been, I've been fortunate enough to travel often with work. I mean, the traveling has not been easy, but it's been productive. I've been in the room with the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. That has been like quite nerve-wracking. I mean, and you say, what am I doing here? Yeah. I'm Glendon from Gibraltar. I mean, from Laguna Estate. What is it that we're doing here? But it's been really fun. It's been really fun.
And you also do a fair bit in terms of receiving people who want to invest in Gibraltar and being kind of an ambassador for Gibraltar.
Yeah, public servants tend to do that on behalf of the government. Obviously, I mean, inward investment is key for Gibraltar and for the government of Gibraltar. So we have to provide a platform for private entities to come to Gibraltar. Some of them we attract in things like at the business conference in London, the Gibraltar Day in London, and other things where we meet, and then there's follow-up conversations, follow-up emails. Some may lead to meetings with very high-profile investors that we normally see in the news, people that own large multinational companies that come to Gibraltar, and it's incredible what you learn from them and what they can bring to Gibraltar. Some of these meetings actually end being companies registered in Gibraltar. These individuals trading from Gibraltar. It could be large insurance companies, it could be gaming companies, it could be real estate. I mean, all sorts. So that is part of my role, but that is also the role mainly of the elected cabinet ministers. But by default, the elected cabinet ministers, they always need to have a public servant in the room when they're discussing business matters to do with the government. And I'm fortunate enough that on many of those meetings, I am the one in attendance with the financial secretary or the chief technical officer or other senior public servants.
You've touched upon some of the work that we do to sort of boost the morale of the public service, recognizing their efforts. Yeah. We've talked often about some perceptions that exist out there in the community that we want to challenge, that we want to change. There are some people out there, I mean, a lot of people understand the work of the civil service and they appreciate the work that is done and they understand the value. But there are criticisms, and we always try to work on changing perceptions, because from the inside is where you really see how much passion and hard work and motivation goes into, the output of government. Imperfect as it is, we're constantly working on doing things the best we can. How do we go about challenging these perceptions that still exist?
Okay, that's a great question, and I need to give you a very grounded answer. We're not perfect, but we certainly try our very best. So the civil service is formed of very hard-working civil servants who relentlessly try to deliver the very best possible. We compare favourably with public services around the world, without a doubt. I mean, you can get a GHA appointment for the same day. You can have a driving license exam booked for within a week. MOT is booked within a week. You can have a red ID card printed within 24 hours. I mean, what is our strength? Our strength is proximity and flexibility. We're small enough to be flexible. We're small enough to adapt. We learn from our mistakes. If there's a problem, proximity helps us immediately get around the table within 1 hour, the heads of departments that are making those decisions. So we've done a number of things with your team and with yourself, like the monthly newsletters for the public servants. I think that has been extremely good. We have a very good press office, which is constantly sending out press releases, doing new innovations like the podcast. I think the podcast is a great idea, and I congratulate you all for the initiative. We have the WhatsApp channel, so I think that we are improving in what we are showing out there. Nevertheless, we need to understand that everyone is entitled to their own opinions, but not to their own facts. There's a big difference between perception and reality. And the reality is that I am a strong supporter of the public service, and I will defend the public service tooth and nail every day of the week.
Do you always find that, we've seen the Chief Minister talk about this recently, and this is an ongoing story. This is Gibraltar, the nation and the small community sort of blended together, where people will want to go straight to the Chief Minister, discuss an issue they're having. Will they also want to go straight to the Chief Secretary to discuss some issue that maybe they should be discussing with a line manager or with sort of another department? Do you find that it's hard to keep that distance, and stick to protocol?
It's hard indeed, because on one hand, you want to provide everyone with accessibility, and we have a duty to be accessible to them, because everyone is entitled to access to certain public servants and ministers. But on the other hand, we need to get on with our work. I always tell my friends, what's the best part of the summer hours? And I said, the best part of the summer hours is that people, the vast majority of them, leave at 2:30, and I can work from 2:30 till 8 because I don't take some hours. But accessibility is a necessary evil. We need to be accessible. We need to get feedback. What happens is that, yes, your meetings your day gets really tied up with meetings, and then you need to find time in the evening to sort of get over the backlog of work. But it's one of these things. Gibraltar is a very small community. Everyone is very politically minded. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone wants to contribute. But my experience is that the vast majority have good intentions. And therefore, you need to listen to them. You need to explain to them if it is or if it is impossible, and they will be happy. What they just want is to be heard.
So I wanted to have a look to the future and think about where we see ourselves in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I've been in discussions with some of the policies, the big policies that are being discussed. Things like the 4-day week, like big changes that are happening around the world, implementing AI into the civil service. What are the big reforms and the big ideas and the big things that are, that you're excited about in terms of the future? AI
is a buzzword. AI is what we all speak about, but we are actually implementing it in the public service. We are already using AI for many of our processes, for some of our processes, and there's more AI that follows. So the thing is that I've had this conversation before with you and with others. I think I even had an interview on this, and I was told if AI would replace jobs, and I always say the same thing: AI won't replace your job, but someone that uses AI will certainly replace your job, because they become more efficient. We all use AI on our day. I use AI on a daily basis. So AI is certainly the future. Gibraltar is too small to be the leader on AI technology,
of course,
but we will certainly be here as a forward-thinking and innovative public service, ready to implement AI in whatever way it will help us improve the outcome to Gibraltarians and tourists and citizens and anyone who needs to use our service. The other thing which I think will be instrumental to our future is the treaty. We don't know yet what the treaty text actually states, or at least at the time of this recording. But what I certainly do know is that it is a game changer. Gibraltar will evolve in a way that none of us could have imagined 2, 3, 4 years ago. I think it has huge potential. Like every deal, it's a compromise, but I think it has huge potential. That is very positive. And I say this as a Gibraltarian, not as Chief Secretary. And I think that that will be a game changer for us. We will be able to improve our offer. We will be able to provide services to the entire European Union. We will become a market with the EU. The freedom of movement that we will have as citizens going in and out. It's going to be a game changer, and I think that will be the biggest change in 5 years. you ask 10, 20 years, look, I hope I'm retired by then. So that would be the role of my successor.
And I spoke to the Chief Minister about how the treaty is going to transform Gibraltar. He was quite sort of low-key about the transformation. He was like, well, so obviously talked about freedom of movement and then opening up markets, but he was confident that a lot of Gibraltar was going to stay the same. No, I think he was thinking about the community, the culture. Yeah, do you think that for the civil service in particular, there will be substantial changes? Are we going to move people around? Are we going to need to rethink certain things?
We're still exploring certain parts of how it would affect the civil service. I mean, something that I can assure is there will be no job losses. There will be no job losses. Quite the contrary, and it will create more security for all of us. Of course, like everything, we will need to adapt. But we've been adapting. If it wasn't the treaty, it was the gaming companies. What the gaming companies, it was Gibraltar as a finance centre. It wasn't a finance centre, it was Gibraltar with the MOD. So Gibraltar, if it wasn't the MOD, it was tourism. Gibraltar has adapted over the years. And the public service has been the key organisation that has allowed us to adapt. We're there to facilitate business. We're there to facilitate services. So no doubt we will adapt. We're quite agile. Despite being a very large organization. So I don't foresee that there will be huge changes initially or even in the long run, but there will be parts of the civil service that we will need to sort of mend in order to be able to implement certain aspects of the treaty.
Okay. So when we were having conversations about the podcast, we discussed an editorial line and how we wanted to make sure that this was an entity that allowed us to disseminate the work that is done in government, but also some insight into a more personal angle to political leaders. But there was always in the back of our minds, we want to make sure that we walk this fine line that makes this a tool for communication and information, not a tool for political propaganda, obviously.
Absolutely.
We have also had many discussions and been involved in creating policy for civil servants that establish the lines that they need to sort of be able to navigate with the way they express themselves online, with what they say online, with how much of their freedom of expression they can use, and it's a difficult one because you don't want to curb people's freedom of speech, but you want people to be faithful to the institution they represent, etc. How have those conversations? What is your personal take on where the lines are for a civil servant?
It's a difficult question, and but thankfully you've answered part of it. We cannot curb freedom of speech. I mean, Gibraltar is a small community of 38,000 citizens. I mean, everyone is entitled to an opinion. Yeah. What is a red line is that if they are involved with ministers, if they're involved in very high-level conversations, or they have access to very important government files,
confidential information,
they need to make sure
information.
that they understand the Secrecy Act, and they need to make sure that there would be consequences for explaining publicly matters which is not up to them to explain, it's up to the ministers to explain. And our role is not to be the government spokesperson. Our role is to assist the elected ministers to implement their policies.
Let's finish with the usual order is past to future. Now we're doing future to past. You talked about Glendon from Launa sitting in front of foreign ministers and prime ministers and I imagine feeling a little bit starstruck, And what is the story of Glendon from Launa? How did you become the most senior civil servant in Gibraltar? Give me a little bit taste about where you come from.
I don't know, a lot of hard work and being in the right place at the right time. There's no secret ingredient. It literally is that. I've worked very hard for many years. I've been in the public service and the private sector since I finished my studies. And I believe that Glendon has developed with time. Glendon has now the necessary experience, the necessary know-how to do this role, to take this forward, and to provide the leadership that the public service needs from its Chief Secretary. Something that I always say is that I always treat people with respect. I think that I've established very good working relationship with all the heads of departments. I'm very proud of being the Chief Secretary. I think it's an honor to do this role, and I'll try my very best to do the best that I can for as long as I have the honor to do this role.
It's interesting because the recruitment of very senior personnel sometimes in Gibraltar, there's a lot of competition that come from abroad, people that are super qualified,
Absolutely.
experienced in like top organizations and big institutions. No? But obviously there's always a desire to sort of go for the local talent and elevate local talent. Why is it important that in senior service positions we elevate the local talent, and how important is the understanding of the local community?
The understanding of the local community is key, but it's twofold. I mean, first and foremost, the government of Gibraltar since the 80s has invested heavily on university, on education, on grants, because and the first focus of this investment was in order to be able to train Gibraltarians to be in the positions that we currently are. We have KCs, we have the best accountants, we have heads of departments, most of them being Gibraltarians, if not all of them. We have the best doctors being Gibraltarians. If we look at back 50 years ago, 40 years ago, we needed to import them. Now we only import now because we provide far too many services. But thankfully, we probably have a Gibraltarian for every single role. Even more so, I dare say that Gibraltarians have been exported to do roles in UK, United States. We have extremely good Gibraltarians working overseas thanks to the education, the free education that we have received here. And I think that is key. And I'm glad to have been able to receive that education through the education system, in the same way as all of us in this room have, in order to achieve certain roles that maybe for our grandparents were sort of impossible to do. So I think that is a policy which has improved the lives of Gibraltarians and in effect has improved Gibraltar in itself, because we have a better understanding of the nuances and the intricacies of the community. On the other hand, I've also been involved in the recruitment of the Commissioner of Police and on the recruitment of the new Director General and on the recruitment of the Principal Auditor, very free senior high posts which are similar to mine. In some instances, some of them may be more important for some operational matters. And two of those three roles are people from overseas, but we got the best person for the job. And sometimes it's, although we do want to prioritize on Gibraltarians, the reality of the matter is we want the best person for the role. And if the best person for the role is someone from outside, we will welcome them with open arms and we will make sure that they understand the community. All of them normally immerse themselves in the community so that we get the best that the best service that the public deserves.
What kind of tips do you normally give them on how to integrate into the community?
We normally become friends relatively soon. So these conversations are quite confidential and happens over a beer.
Okay. No, nothing you can disclose, and tips on the kind of places where you can go to
they should go everywhere. They should go everywhere. If they want to really understand Gibraltar, they should go everywhere and they should meet as many people as possible. And probably the ones which become the most successful are the ones that make Gibraltar their home, and the ones that come with their children and they end up children in schools and they meet up parents of the children's friends and they go to parties, and that is Gibraltar. That is Gibraltar, and they go to the beach, and that is the Gibraltar that they need to know, they need to appreciate, and they need to understand. And I think that the vast majority of them, not all of them, have done that.
One thing that we've asked, and we're going to be asking our guests, is to give us some sort of cultural recommendation, something that they have been into all their lives or something they've recently discovered. It can be books, music, films. Give us a bit of the kind of things that you're into.
Okay. I'm into music. I mean, I could speak about music for the next 10 series of podcasts.
Next one, you'll do it with Daniel. You guys can chat about music.
We can do it. We can certainly do it. I'm from the late 70s, so have a passion for grunge music. In terms of my favorite song, certainly will be Stay Away from Alice in Chains. I mean, I think it's a song which is a person who was vulnerable, a person who was strong, a person who was truthful, and that song is all about being honest with yourself. Sad that it was a song that he did when he was about to die. It comes from one of the best albums of all times, which I also listen way too often, which is Alice in Chains, Jar of Flies. But then, so I'm passionate about music. I mean, there are so many albums I can mention. Pearl Jam 10, an album that has stood the test of time, an album which very few will be able to replicate in the future. Great songs there, Black, etc. But then again, as I said, I could hear anything. I could hear anything and everything, and would enjoy having a chat on music with anyone in any room. In terms of cultural look or things that I do, sports. I'm keen. I'm a keen sports person.
Guy.
Now, much less than before, because I literally do not have time. But people tend to see me running or cycling or doing some crazy...
Triathlons was your thing,
triathlon,
no?
yeah. Ironmans. I've done a few Ironmans. I've done a lot of swimming. So, but I'm not as active as I would want to, but I would really want to return to those 20, 30 hours of training per week as soon as I have the opportunity to do so in the future.
What about like films and TV and things like that, shows?
Films. I don't get time to watch a lot of films. That's a reality. Yeah. I mean, people speak about Netflix series. I haven't seen any. I don't have time.
I have the same problem.
I don't have time. I wish I did.
It's sad, yeah, I wish I did
but
too.
It's a sad reality. But films, look, one of my favorite movies is Meet Joe Black, with Anthony Hopkins and Brad Pitt. I think it's a movie about loyalty. It's a movie about understanding life, and that material assets mean nothing towards the end of your life, or even at the beginning of your life, and that you have to be loyal and stay loyal to the people who really care for you. And that's a great movie which I highly recommend, and I've seen a number of times.
Okay, so thank you very much for this interview. I think it will allow a lot of people to have a slightly better idea of exactly the work you do, but also where we are right now in the civil service, where we're looking towards. And I'd like to finish by giving you the opportunity to send a message out there, in particular to the civil service. Now, what would you like to say to the civil service now, whether it's a message of gratitude, whether you want to sort of talk to them about where we're going? The floor is yours.
No, I mean, it's certainly a message of gratitude. I want to thank all public servants. This includes essential services, the education, clerical, transport. I mean, it's endless, the number of public service departments that we have. And they work endlessly, relentlessly to provide the best service possible with the resources that we provide them. They want to improve, and I can see that when I discuss it with them. I can see them when I visit the departments. They want to create efficiencies. They want the best to the public service, to Gibraltar, and all of them are very proud of being public servants. People are very proud of being public servants. It's one of these things. You put up a vacancy for the public service and you get 200 applications. And everyone wants to join the service, and they want to join the service. And that, for me, is a good message. They want to join the service because our terms and conditions are good, because our workplace is good, because they have the opportunity to do a wide range of roles, from taxation to digitization to education to health. They can do a wide range of roles. They can transfer through an organization with 54 departments, and they will be part of a public service which has a budget of £750 million, which is almost a third of Gibraltar's GDP. So what we do in the public service matters, and what we do in the public service is key for Gibraltar's success. And I'm very proud of what we do, and I'm very grateful to all of them.
Thank you. Okay, guys. This is an extract that we perhaps should record in the first episode.
Yeah.
So we will call this housekeeping notes. I think it's a term that's used often in the podcast world. And the idea is to give a bit of information from within, sort of the editorial kind of decisions that we have made in the making of this podcast, and some information that we think is important. Mm-hmm. But before that happens, I want us to do like a brief introduction of who we are. I mean, people know who we are, but still. So I am Anton, as you know, and I am the comms director of the government, and this is the comms team of the government.
Shall I go? Yeah. So I'm Amy, again, part of the government's comms team. I've been here for about 10 years, so this is an exciting new way and format for us to try and get across our message.
I'm Daniel. I'm part of the comms team as well. Been here 8 months. It's an enjoyable ride so far, and this podcast is definitely something to look forward to.
And behind the cameras, we have James, who is responsible for how cool and fancy and crisp and lovely this podcast looks. So we thank him for all his hard work there. Yeah. And in the housekeeping list that we had, one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you guys is sort of the mission of this podcast, the purpose, and most importantly, what this podcast is not supposed to be, because we anticipated a degree of criticism of people who would say that, you know, we're sort of supplanting journalism and doing propaganda on behalf of government. As a communications department, before as a press office, we put out the messaging of government, but this is not a propaganda outlet. This is not to be seen as a replacement for journalism, of which we have in Gibraltar of a very high standard. This is not to replace. This is not should not replace as a source of information the information you get from GBC, from Chronicle, etc. This is a vehicle for government to give out messages that are important for the general public, to give people the opportunity to know a little bit more about their people who work in the civil service, and that's kind of something I wanted to discuss.
Yeah, it's
something that you were worried about.
No, it's a good opportunity to showcase the hard work that does go on behind the scenes. Like, the civil service is massive. There's a lot of people working, and you know, there's a lot of hard work going on, which unless you're in that department, you won't really get to see, because the media cover what we put out as press releases, but the general day-to-day running of whatever programs are happening, you know, some projects take a while to get off the ground, and there's a lot of hard work behind the scenes, and this podcast will give those people and those teams a platform to actually showcase what they're doing.
Yeah, I think if you look at how we've always traditionally handled this kind of thing, there's a standard kind of formula to how the government communicates what it's doing. So we have the press releases, and then if it's something really big, like the end point of a big announcement, we have the press conference. A lot of people will be very used to it, where we have this format of 3 or 4 people, maybe a politician and some public servants who've put in the work behind the scenes, who give the end point of what it is that they've done. But I think this is not to replace journalism in any way. It's just another format for them to be able to give some rationales and reasoning behind the things that we're working on before the end point comes. People can see the build up and why things are happening the way that they're happening.
Yeah, and with a human face, you know, with the story behind it, and also we live in the time of AI, and where a lot of written communication is starting to sound more and more as a conversation between robots. So they can't do that.
Yeah, and it's something that I've seen personally over the years. Like, if we talk about maybe 900 to 1,000 press releases a year over the last 10 years, that's a lot of press releases. I think people are starting to look for different ways to engage and to converse, but also the way that they're being written now, like you say, is completely different to even 2 or 3 years ago. And we need to try and find a way around that so that people's voices are not lost. The government's full of highly competent professional people doing really good jobs, and I think it's important that we keep telling those stories.
Yeah, and I get the impression that we're going to get to the point where most everything that's in a written medium is going to sound very similar, and that means that people and so ChatGPT is very good at emulating the institutional sort of voice, but it can't replace people talking about their work, about their lives, about their feelings. So I think that this is a format that is going to be more and more useful for us to communicate going forward in the future.
Yeah, it's human faces and human conversations.
So another thing that we want to discuss is precisely the AI policy. And I think that we want to be completely transparent, and we want to tell people that we've used AI to design that very cool logo. We've also used AI to compose the very questionable theme music,
rock music.
But everything else that's done here has not been scripted with AI. It has had absolutely no sort of AI involvement whatsoever. We want to keep it that way. We want to every introduction we do to every episode, the list of subjects we're going to discuss, all of that stuff, we want it to remain organic. We want it to have sort of a human flavor.
Yeah.
And that's something important that we want to say there. And perhaps an issue that's perhaps a little thornier, but still we want to speak about sort of very openly and transparently, is kind of editorial control. Yeah. Which is something that we've discussed, that we've sort of tried to keep a hold of. The idea is that we will try to steer conversations away from sort of live controversies, so as not to generate this impression that we're doing the role of a journalistic broadcaster, which we aren't. That we're going to steer conversations away from sort of partisan political conversations, that we're going to try and keep it personal. We're going to try to keep it big picture, which is something I think is missing from a lot of the discussions in social media. And this is, however, we can't censor and we don't have full control of editorial control of what happens here. However, put out this pledge of this is what we're going to try to do, and this is the aim and the objective of the podcast.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is create something that feels professional, that feels informative, and that feels real. And perhaps it may come out that we're talking about a big picture issue, that somebody has something more opinionated to say about it. We can't stop them from saying that either. This is a forum for people to be able to say honestly what they think about a certain thing that we're working on. And I think that's part of what we're trying to achieve as well.
I think it's also key to make it personable to the person that's around across the table as well. I listen to podcasts, and the most interesting ones are when an interviewer, maybe they're promoting a book, movie, TV show, whatever it is that they're promoting, but around that, they're having a conversation. They're not just talking about the movie. They're not just talking about whatever they're selling. They're talking about, tell me about your upbringing, what your parents like or whatever, But it's also to give the people on the other side a chance to speak about, what makes you tick. Like, why are you here? What drives you? And the only way to get to that is by having a conversation with the person and sort of asking the questions that's not exclusively about your job or what you're doing, but it's also it helps them relax. When you talk to someone and you talk about, tell me about yourself. What do you like in your spare time? People tend to relax a bit more when they're sort of thinking inwards, and then you can sort of slide the conversation into more of the work stuff and the stuff you want to talk about. They're probably more relaxed. No one likes speaking live on camera or So I think this is a good opportunity to sort of, even though there are cameras, there aren't cameramen behind the camera looking at you. It's more relaxed, and it's a good chance to make everything very personal and drive that forward.
I agree. Absolutely. So now that you said that, it's a good opportunity for us to describe the setup. So we have 3 cameras filming this, as you probably noticed. And all of the equipment that's been used is equipment that was already in the press office. Because another thing that I've seen comment online is, how much is this costing the taxpayer? So we're going to be extremely transparent about how much this has cost. We have bought that neon sign. We have
mugs.
These mugs. Yeah, very cool mugs that people want to steal from us. And we have paid for a lick of paint inside this room, this small boardroom in number 6. All in all, this comes to just under £400. That is the full budget. Everything else, mics, cameras, the soundboard that we use to record the sound, The lighting is all equipment that we had that we use on a day-to-day basis to produce our videos, to film our interviews, our press conferences, etc. So if you think about it, this will be the second episode. It's cost about 200 episodes a piece. And as we carry on going forward, the cost will eventually be almost negligible, which I think is very good value considering the work that I think we're going to be doing. So that's another thing we want to discuss.
Basically, we're squeezing the assets. So we already have these assets, the cameras, the mics and everything, because we use it for other video productions and other stuff we do internally. So it's just using the same equipment and giving them another use and extracting value from what we have.
Yeah, that's a tale of the press office over the years as well, is find what we already have and find a way to make a new use of it, which is exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. And we all, within the office, we use our own camera equipment, which most of us have, and whatever resources we have at home to try and minimize the cost to the taxpayer. This is something that we all take very seriously.
Yeah.
So that's another item of housekeeping we want to discuss. What else did we have to discuss?
So another item that we wanted to discuss is the format and frequency. I mean, we've already spoken about this publicly already, but it's bi-weekly. So every 2 weeks, expect an episode. Usually it's in 2 parts. That's the idea we're going for. We're going to go for 2 parts on each episode. So we'll have a guest on one part of the show. And then on the second part, we might have another guest or a team, depending on what the flavor of the day of the month is. How to identify who we speak to.
Just to complement what you were saying on the format. So yeah, it's a part 1 and a part 2 for every episode. Part 1 will be a 1-to-1 interview and part 2 will be a group chat. Yeah. And normally it will be a sort of in-depth 1-to-1 with someone in the department, working within government. And then the second part will be mostly around something that's happening in the civil service that we want to communicate, inside and outside. Some event last week, it was the women's mentorship program that we wanted to promote. That got extended another week, so we would have the opportunity to promote it in the podcast. So that's gonna kind of steer how we're going to choose our guests.
Yeah. And I think the reason we went for every other week as well is, again, we've introduced our team. This is our whole team. There's 4 of us. So it means that our own operational capacity doesn't get overtaken completely by trying to produce something that is good quality, professional, and allows us to bring in colleagues from across the service as well in a way that is meaningful. So I think we're trying to look for stories that are big picture, but also relevant, pertinent to what it is that we're doing now, which is why we introduced Marlin and Christian in episode 1, because it was exactly what's happening right now. I think that's what we're looking for as well.
Especially if it's valuable for the public.
Yeah.
If we can do anything to promote a policy or a program or something that we want people to know about, we will use the podcast to do that. So that brings us to an end of the housekeeping. We will be doing these occasionally, every once in a while, if we feel there's information that needs to come out. In the meantime, thanks very much for listening to the podcast, and we look forward to coming to you every couple of weeks with interesting stories from within the government.